All right, well, hello, and thanks for watching the second, I suppose it's the third day of Holy Week, but this is the second video devotional that I've been doing, and I hope to have one for you the continuing days of this week. So today is Tuesday, and at Jesus' time in Jerusalem is continuing forward. Sunday he rides in, riding the donkey, being praised by his disciples as the messianic king. Even though they're getting a lot of the terminology right, they don't understand that he is more than the Messiah. He's the Lord and God himself coming to his people, and that he's coming to save them and to take up his throne through his passion, which is something that not even the disciples were expecting. And then on Monday, we looked at we talked about some of the things that happen after he arrives in the city on Sunday. Monday, he's moving around in Jerusalem, talking, giving parables, talking with the Pharisees. And then traditionally, Tuesday is understood as the day where he's coming back into Jerusalem, and the disciples see the fig tree that he had cursed because of its not bearing fruit, which is a picture of the people of Israel at that time, who looked like they should be fruitful, but there was no fruit of acceptance of the Lord in their lives. And then on Tuesday, the Gospels tell us that he goes into the temple, has more confrontation with the Pharisees, gives some parables, and then leaves and goes to sit outside the city. And then looking back at the city, the disciples point out the temple and how impressive it is. And that begins what's sometimes called the Olivet Discourse, where Jesus talks about the signs of his coming, the signs of the end of the age. And it's a section of that discourse that I want to read for you and just think about with you briefly today. So this is in Matthew chapter 25, and Jesus is talking to his disciples about the coming of the kingdom, his coming, the end of the age. And there's all kinds of discussion about what will that look like, when will that be, and I'm not going to get into any of that right now. But what we're looking at specifically is this parable of the 10 virgins that he gives at the beginning of Matthew 25. So Matthew 25, just think that Jesus is sharing these things with his disciples days before he is going to the cross to be enthroned as the king of that kingdom. In a way, enthroned on the cross as the king of the kingdom, as the reality of his enthronement and as the anticipation of what will be his final enthronement upon his return. And then he says this: "Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom." So there's this image of the bridegroom, that's Christ in the role of the bridegroom, coming to his people. 5 of them, it says, were foolish, and 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. So that's what makes them foolish. They didn't bring oil to keep the lamps burning. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, "Here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, "Since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves." And while they were going to buy, which I don't think they're going to find any oil for sale at midnight, while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch." And then this is what Jesus, this is the takeaway, the application that Jesus gives to his disciples. Watch, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Basically saying, be alert, be ready, be watchful, because you don't know the day or the hour that I am returning. That is the application of this parable. So just a few thoughts here. First, I used to always read this and think, well, that's strange, because Jesus calls us to share, to give of ourselves, to give to those who do not have. And so here we see these 10 virgins who didn't bring oil, and they ask the wise virgins, hey, can you give us some of your oil so that we can be ready for the bridegroom too? And the wise ones say, no, I'm not going to give you any oil. And that always seemed, well, that's strange. Why aren't they sharing? And we see at the end, remember this is a parable, and that the oil represents something. And it represents what? It represents their readiness for the bridegroom. And that's why Jesus says at the end, watch, be alert, be ready. So the parallel to the wise virgins who had oil in their lamps is a disciple who is ready for the return of the Lord, who is watching and alert. And the parallel to not having oil is a disciple who is not ready for Jesus, who's letting their lives go in any direction. They are not living in an awareness of Christ and of his return. And when you think about it that way, you realize, oh, well, if my oil in my lamp is my readiness and my alertness for Christ, I can't really share that with anyone else. Nobody else can be ready for you. You need to be ready. You need to be alert. I can't be alert for you. You can't be alert for me. You can call me to be alert. You can call me to be ready, but you can't share your readiness with me, and I can't share my readiness with you. And that's why in this parable, the virgins don't share their oil with the others, because the oil is representing that readiness for Christ. So that's the first thing to see. And the second thing is Jesus commands his people, and if we're trusting him, that's us, watch, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Be ready, be watchful, be prepared for his coming. Both because he may come, we don't know when he's going to come, we don't know when he's going to split the skies and come. And secondly, because I don't know when I'm going to meet him, because Jesus is going to come for me the moment my heart stops beating, which could be at any time. It could be before this video ends. So we need to be ready for him. That's the oil of the virgins, and in this sense, the virgins are those who are celebrating the wedding of the bride and the bridegroom. That's the context of this story. So our oil in our lamps is our readiness for Christ's appearing, whether it is his second coming that we live to see, or whether it's the moment he calls us and our heart stops and we go to see him. Jesus says, be ready for me. And so our question would be, okay, what is readiness? What does it mean to be ready for him? And without turning this into a full-blown sermon, he explains that readiness later on in this chapter. Chapter 25 has 3 parables, each of which are commenting on one another and commenting on this idea of being ready. The first one is this parable of the 10 virgins. The second one is the parable of the servants who receive talents from their Lord, talent being a form of money, and then go and use it in certain ways. And the third one being a picture of the last judgment, where it talks about people coming before Christ. Each one of these stories is turning the diamond, as you've heard that phrase, looking at this idea of readiness from another perspective. So we want to know, what does it mean to be ready for his coming? What does it mean to have oil in my lamp so that I'm ready at the coming of the Lord, whether it's his second coming or my death? And we can get an idea of that by looking at this parable at the end of the chapter. So let me just look there briefly with you. What does it mean to be ready? Well, here's an example. Jesus says people will be gathered to him, and to those on his right-hand side, his people, who have been secured for him through his death and resurrection, who are chosen in him, he says this, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For," so here's how they know the kingdom is for them. "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer and say, "Lord," so notice that they call him Lord. They're his servants. He's their master. "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick and in prison and visit you?" So they're saying, when did we do these things? We can't remember doing that for you. And he says, as you probably well know, the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." So what does it mean for them to be ready? What does it mean for this group of disciples to have been ready for the coming of the Lord? Essentially, we could put it this way. It's the obedience of love. It is a life lived in a way that images the love of Christ, the loving of giving ourselves for those in need, giving ourselves for those who are sick or struggling or needing food or clothing or drink, whether it's drastic in the sense of homelessness or whether it's just the struggles of our brothers or sisters. It is this lifestyle that is marked by a giving up of the self for the sake of the other in the name of Jesus Christ. That lifestyle of obedient love is, in this context, what it means to be ready for the coming of Christ, because each one of these parables is commenting on this idea of readiness. So what is the oil in the lamp of his people? The oil that causes us to be ready for his coming? It is loving those around us in his name, loving our brothers and sisters in the acted out practical actions of love, not just saying it, not just thinking it, but doing it. And that, in this context, is what it means to be ready. Now, that doesn't mean works righteousness, but it does mean works evidence of righteousness. The root of this readiness is trusting Jesus Christ as master. He as the master of my life. And if that's the case, he is the righteousness that's covering me. I am united to him. I am found in him. His purity and acceptance is mine. Absolutely, that is the root. But if that's true, it will work itself out in acts of Christ-imaging love. And it is by those acts that we are known to be living trees. It is by those acts that our lives are shown to be ready for his coming. And so those acts do not make us ready, but they show that we are ready. They show that we are rooted in him. And without them, we're like those foolish virgins who, they've got the lamp, but there's no oil in it. And so this is the teaching that Jesus gives here on this Tuesday of Holy Week. And it's good for me to remember, and I wanted to bring it before you as well, that if we need to be ready at any time, at any moment, because we never know when the Lord is going to appear to us, whether by his second coming or by our death. We never know. And readiness for that moment is a life rooted in, dependent upon, under the lordship of the slain and risen Jesus Christ, and therefore a life that is acting in works of obedient love that give ourselves up for the needs of others. That is the readiness for his coming. And I pray that by his grace, he would make me one who is ready for him, to meet him, and he would make you one who's ready to meet him, so that we would be those who, if someone said, you are going to be face to face with Jesus Christ in 1 minute, we wouldn't go crazy. We wouldn't change everything. We wouldn't say, oh, if I'm going to meet him, everything, I got to put things in place. We would be at peace because we would say, well, I'm ready to meet him. My life is one that is rooted in and bearing the fruit of that readiness for him. So again, may he achieve that in us as we seek to grow in him. So I will hopefully see you again on Wednesday, tomorrow, to talk about the events of that day and to continue to prepare our hearts for this coming weekend with Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Resurrection Sunday. So until then, may we rest in the readiness given to us in Christ.